If I were to ask you who you think the greatest protagonist in video game history is, who would you pick? I'm sure many people would say Master Chief, Link, Lara Croft, Nathan Drake and so on. Ever since I played Assassin's Creed 2, I always thought it was Ezio. His personality and growth throughout the series were amazing to experience, and truth be told, this video was originally supposed to be about Ezio. However, I'm pretty sure you can all read and could tell that my title did not mention Ezio, but rather another man, Arthur Morgan. After playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I had to admit that Arthur is overall a better character than Ezio. I made a video a few months back on how Red Dead Redemption 2 ruined gaming for me, and in that video I said the main reason why Red Dead Redemption 2 was so amazing was not just the open world, graphics, story, insane detail, but mainly Arthur Morgan. I vowed at the end of that video to make another video, one where I talk about why exactly I think this way and give you visual proof to back up my claim. And I'm a man of my word, so here it is. A tribute to Arthur Morgan, gaming's greatest protagonist. Let's begin.
Well, you just a tough-as-teak mountain man.
Oh, you be quiet, Anastasia. Anyone can tell this one is a pussy cat.
Exactly, yes, he's a pussy cat. Ain't that so, Arthur?
Whatever you say. How much you cost, anyway?
Well, ain't that a nice way to talk to a lady?
Oh, I didn't know I was talking to a lady.
Excuse me.
The excitement for Red Dead Redemption 2 was already through the roof for various reasons. One being it's a Rockstar game and they always deliver extremely high quality games. Another being that it's a sequel, technically prequel in terms of in-game timeline, to the critically acclaimed and beloved Red Dead Redemption, which fans of the series have wanted for a very long time. The trailer for RDR 2 boasted a bigger world with more things to do and an engaging story. What the trailers didn't tell us about, however, was Arthur Morgan and who exactly he was. But more on him later. The first Red Dead Redemption game had us playing as John Marston, a lovable badass looking to redeem himself of his past sins in an effort to save his family and leave his past life of robbing trains and killing people behind. You all know what happened at the end of Red Dead Redemption. John died in front of our eyes, shot down and betrayed by the men that put him up to the task to take down his former gang members. All the time we spent with John and seeing more of his backstory revealed, with his personality growing and becoming a better person, the attachment that we grew for John only for him to be left in a bloody mess with bullet holes littered throughout his body was not a pretty sight to behold. It was hard to watch, to say the least. So when RDR 2 was announced and we got our glimpse at Arthur Morgan for the first time, almost everybody was disappointed. Not because Arthur looked like a bad character to play as, but rather because most of us just wanted to play as a younger John Marston, and more importantly, nobody thought that Arthur could stand on the same pedestal as John, let alone even consider that he could be better. But that's exactly what happened. Almost everybody agrees that Arthur is an overall better character than John, so much so that when we get to play as John again in the end of RDR 2, the game fell significantly off. Even though I still love John and I think he's a great character, I just adored playing as Arthur more, so when we have to play as John again, I just kept thinking that something is missing. Someone is missing. Arthur is missing. So what makes Arthur Morgan such an amazing character, I hear you ask? Well, that's a great question. The same thing that makes any character amazing, progression and personality, of which Arthur Morgan had an abundance of. Not to mention the great scripting, long story, and the absolutely perfect voice acting courtesy of the fantastic Roger Clark. All these things mixed together to create a strong main protagonist. Arthur holds the entire story together, of course with the help from some other side characters. It's great to see Arthur's transition from being somewhat heartless who will do anything for the camp to a man who sees things clearly and wants to change, desperately. It's this desperation towards the end to redeem himself that Arthur truly shines, making us feel and connect with him. He isn't a character that does bad things just for the sake of doing them. Well, unless you make him. I'm talking about the character and my personal playthrough, not really the player choices during gameplay moments like going to mass shooting through town because you're bored and Fortnite is down. He has his reasons. He's not evil. Hot-tempered? Maybe, but not evil. It's this moral ambiguity that feels so grounded in reality. Is he doing illegal things? Yes, but does that make what he's doing morally bad? Well, again, yes, but he feels justified in his actions because he's doing it for a cause. Most people have probably heard this example, but it explains my point rather well. A father has no money but needs to feed his starving children or they may die. So in order to provide, the father steals some food to feed them. Whilst illegal and morally wrong considering that you are stealing, is it justified? I wager most would say yes, because otherwise someone may die. This is the mentality that Arthur has, and no matter what it costs him or what he has to do, he will protect and provide for the camp, even if that means doing truly terrible deeds. He knows what he's doing is bad, as shown by this clip where he talks to Mary.
But surely you cannot hate a man for the sin of loving his daughter and wanting better for her than
me?
than the choices you make.
What choice did I have? Did I ever have?
Oh, I know. You had to live by your code. But your code is... Well, it's not right.
Has your way been right, Mary? With you? And Jamie joining a bunch of crazies? And hypocritical daddy with his drinking and whoring and gambling? Huh? Is that what a pure life has gotten you? Begging me for help?
Oh, Arthur. Be kind to me. Please.
Sorry.
Whilst conflicted, Arthur thinks it's fine because he needs to protect the camp, otherwise people may die. Of course his crimes aren't justified, he's killing people. He just does what he's got to do because he doesn't know any other way.
It's my way of saying thank you. And thank you. There I was, having a dull day only for you. To liven it up by letting me help you shoot up half a town.
This scene is important because it's very early on in the game and shows that Arthur doesn't want to kill people for no reason. He's not just this evil, bloodthirsty monster, but instead conflicted between what he has to do, which is break Micah out of jail, and what he doesn't want to do, which is kill people. Even though I can't empathize with his actions, I can still feel sorry for him because he's being somewhat forced to do terrible things that he doesn't want to do. Arthur isn't necessarily intelligent, but he is quite sharp and tactful. He doesn't have great social skills, but he is unintentionally funny and quite likable. He tries to never show any vulnerability, however he is good with words, well, when it comes to things such as threats, because he's had to do them for a very long time. It's a combination of all these factors that make Arthur a badass but yet lovable character to play as. Rockstar did a great job of humanizing him and making him feel realistic. Whereas most characters tend to say long, impactful and eloquent speeches seemingly from the top of their heads, Arthur isn't like that. He can't do that. Even at the end, when he sacrifices himself knowing that he's but minutes away from death, after his horse dying and building this strong relationship with John, giving him his hat and telling him to run, he still can't say anything cool or epic like we'd expect from other characters like an Ezio. Usually if a character is in a situation like Arthur, they'd have this epic speech that's supposed to have an impact on the character, more importantly us the players, but that's not how Arthur's like. It's not in his nature to be that kind of guy. Now most of you are probably thinking, what the hell are you going on about? That I'm diving way too deep and looking at things that just aren't there, but I'm doing this just to emphasize certain points and give you my reasoning. You see, for me the big things in games like the Nathan Drake plane scene on Uncharted 2 makes games epic, fun and memorable, but it's the little details like finding out that Arthur had a son named Isaac who was murdered alongside his mother, and that if you didn't behave in a certain way or do a certain mission you would never know that. Those kind of things are littered throughout RDR2 and they add detail and immersion into the characters. The little details are important because they can be missed, but when found add more depth than previously thought there was. It's this attention to detail that Rockstar absolutely perfected in this game and with Arthur. The minute things that most people will gloss over, but for those of us who see it really affect us. A great example of this is the scene where Tilly tells the gang that Abigail has been captured. There are so many little details in the scene that make it so impactful, like the fact that Dutch is in the middle and Mike and his goons are on his left, whereas Arthur and Sadie are on his right, showing two opposite ends of the spectrum, our bad guys and our good guys. We have Micah trying to convince Dutch to let Abigail go and Arthur pleading with and damn near begging him to save her, almost like Dutch has an angel and a demon on either side of his shoulder. The way that Arthur proceeds to get off his horse and walk up to Dutch, throwing away his high status and showing his vulnerability to care. But Dutch just looking down on Arthur as he begs him to save Abigail shows how much power and status Dutch has in that moment. And of course, the simple yet fantastic way Roger Clark delivers the lines in this scene show the betrayal and desperation in Arthur's voice. This scene did not just accidentally happen to become so detailed, and even though it may seem like I'm picking things off from thin air, I don't believe I am, but rather that this scene was purposefully created so, and this is just one out of many scenes that can be dissected in this way to show the insane amount of thought that went into everything regarding Arthur and the story in RDR2.
We hid, but they took Abigail.
Who did?
Agent Milton and his men took her to Van Horn to be put on a boat and tried for murder.
I am sorry to hear that.
We gotta let her go. John's, well, sorry, son. Without John, she's just bait. We got a bunch of money, Dutch. She's just a girl. They won't do nothing to her.
But
me and the boys know.
Yep.
We need to keep riding on this one, Dutch. You know it. Every man here knows
so we
it.
just gonna let the boy be made an orphan? It ain't like that. What is it like?
I wanna live, cowpoke. I still got the choice. Dutch, it's just a girl.
You're right. It's Micah. It pains me to say it, Arthur, but he's right. Touch! Come on, boys. Yeah!
So I've touched on the small details in the game that give Arthur this realistic and grounded tone to him. Now let's talk about the big reason as to why Arthur is such a fantastic character. His redemption. Seeing someone go from bad to good makes everyone empathize with them. It's just a natural human instinct to have. We want people to be good and therefore can connect with those who want that too. It's even more prevalent in a game like this with a character like Arthur because we are forced to do bad things at the beginning that we may not want to do, like beating up Mr. Downs in front of his family and then later finding out that Mr. Downs had died, and instead of allowing his family to grieve, Arthur again comes to collect the money that's owed to him and in the process threatens the son with an albeit pretty damn good couple lines.
Either you got a lazy eye or lack of respect. Which is it, boy?
I ain't got no lazy eye. No respect for the likes of you.
Well, maybe when your mother's finished mourning your father, I'll keep her in black, on your behalf. You think on that, boy?
For much of the game we are forced to do some terrible crimes, but even through all the violence and bloodshed, Rockstar gives us some very heartwarming missions to do that help us see a different side to Arthur, like the fishing with Jack mission. A boring mission to most, but for me it was really interesting, as here you have this man that steals, kills and does all forms of other disturbing deeds, being kind and sort of a father figure to Jack, a child who is, for the moment, really void of sin. I love this contrast and seeing Arthur behave in such a different manner than he usually does, and that shows there may still be hope for him yet. As the story unfolds, we have arguably the most important moment in the game, where Arthur gets diagnosed with tuberculosis, and it's at this point that the entire game changes significantly. For the first time, Arthur is actually fearful. He's always managed to get out of every situation he's been in, no matter what, but now he's been told that he will die, and there is nothing that anyone can do about it, and that terrifies him. It's now that we finally, after playing as him for so long, we see him be honest and vulnerable for the first time.
I've lived a bad life, sister.
We've all lived bad lives, Mr. Morgan. We all sin. But I know you.
You don't know me.
Forgive me, but that's the problem. You don't know you.
What do you mean?
I don't know, but whenever we happen to meet, you're always helping people and smiling.
I had a son. He passed away. I had a girl who loved me. I threw that away. My mama died when I was a kid. And my daddy, well, I watched him die. And it weren't soon enough.
Perhaps you could help somebody. Helping makes you really happy.
But I still don't believe in nothing.
Often, neither do I.
Huh?
But then I meet someone like you, and everything makes sense.
You're too smart for me, sister. I guess I'm afraid.
Is it just me, or is this scene really amazing? Arthur finally lets it out, just says how he's feeling, and it's so satisfying because it's what we've wanted him to do the entire time with all his pent up emotions. I could dissect this scene to no end, but I've already done that and you get my point. The game has insane detail. From this point on, we see Arthur desperately try to make amends for his sins and try to earn some forgiveness. The only way he can even come close to doing that is by helping John Marston and his family escape this vicious life in one piece. It's through this act that Arthur's redemption truly begins. Now there are tons and tons of scenes that I could play from this point until the end, showing Arthur in various ways earning his redemption, like when he helps the chief and his son, saving Abigail, helping Charles, going back to make amends with Mrs. Downs and more. We are now at the point where Arthur has done so much, but there's still one thing he has to do. Warn Dutch of Micah's betrayal, because even though Dutch has become crazy and delusional, he's still family to him, and Arthur is and always will be loyal. The last few missions of Arthur's journey had some of the most iconic moments in the entire game, and one of my favourites is the journey that Arthur takes back to the camp to confront Micah and warn Dutch. This scene is so emotional as Arthur knows, as we do, that this is his death. It's just around the corner and this will be the last thing left for him to do. As we take our journey back to camp with Arthur riding his horse, really nice music starts to play and all the memorable quotes start playing aloud through Arthur's head. This is doubly impactful for us the players, as it's also reminding us the entire journey we took to get to this point in the game now.
That's the way it is.
Well, you're a good man. I just wish you'd done it before he worked himself into the grave.
Really sorry for your son. It's a hell of a thing.
now is decide the man you want to be for the time you have left.
Okay, so I've never cried at a video game. Heck, I've never even shed a tear. Not when John died, not when Dom died, not when Joel's daughter Sarah, and not even when my beloved Ezio Auditore da Firenze took his last breath, but wow! Did I feel weird when all of a sudden I randomly just started crying like a little baby. It was so weird that I had to check out videos on YouTube of other people crying just so I didn't feel like I was a crybaby or something. The scene was just so impactful for me. It just hit me so hard that this is it. This is the end. This character that I've grown to love and adore through what was around 80 hours of game time is finally meeting his end. And it's so weird because I knew it was coming before the game even released. No joke, I even made a video predicting that Arthur was going to die and we would spend the remainder of the game playing as John, so even though I knew it was coming, I was not prepared for the journey it would take me on. So Arthur arrives at the camp and all chaos breaks loose, but it's at this point that John comes back after they all thought he died. Now it's no longer about Arthur warning Dutch, but Arthur back on his main goal of getting John out of there alive. As both of them try to escape, another truly sad moment happens, where Arthur's horse gets shot. And this is extremely upsetting for us the players too, as this horse has been our companion throughout the entire game. And Rockstar did a great job of getting us attached to the horse by customizing it, bonding with it, and generally always relying on the horse. You see Arthur stroking and thanking his horse, staying with it until it takes his last breath. Again, this scene conveys that Arthur was not evil throughout the entire game, as he still had love for his horse. Arthur and John go up the mountain, trying to escape, but it's at this point Arthur stops and tells John that this is it. He can't go on anymore and that his time has come. John tries to convince Arthur and push him to keep going, but Arthur is a stubborn old man set in his ways, so he gives John his bags, his hat, and some great advice.
Go. Arthur, go to your family. Arthur, get the hell out of here and be a goddamn man.
Now this is probably the one detail that stuck out to me the most throughout my entire playthrough of this game. Remember when I said Arthur is so grounded in reality that he can't say these eloquent lines and these impactful long speeches from the top of his head? That he's the kind of guy that always keeps his emotions in check? Well, it's the same, even here, at the final goodbye. Because when Arthur walks away, John shouts at him,
"You're my brother."
And in typical Arthur fashion, he simply responds,
I know.
and then walks on to meet his end. As Dutch looks down at the bloody, fading body of Arthur, of his most loyal friend, Arthur tells him,
I tried. In the end, I did.
I hope by now I've managed to put my point across as to why I love this character so much. And honestly, I could have spoken even longer about it, but I don't like making long videos. It's just a mixture of so many factors: the scripting, the voice acting, storyline, time investment, the immersion, small details, and Arthur's redemption arc, all done so damn well. There's a reason this game took the spot as my favourite game of all time, and without Arthur, that never would have happened. It's really tough for me to get invested into a game. I never thought I'd care this much about a fictional character, but Rockstar made me. I got so connected to this character that the more sick he got, the more I tried to take care of him. I'd constantly get him meals, make sure he's properly groomed, and gave him baths, just because I wanted his last moments to be happy. And I know, it sounds dumb, and honestly, it's kind of weird hearing me say these things, because, well, it's not real. It's just a video game. It's just a fake character. But I don't get immersed in games. I'm always fully aware that I'm playing a video game the whole time, and I'm never invested. In the last chapter, I felt like I was playing with Logan from the X-Men movie, where he's sick but still doing everything he can to fight and protect until the bitter end. And even though Arthur died, I felt kind of happy for him, because he earned his redemption and got the death he desired. When Hosea asked him how he wanted to go early on in the game, he said, "Just face me to the west so I can watch the setting sun and remember all the fine times we had." And he got that. Rest in peace, Arthur Morgan, knowing that you are gaming's greatest protagonist.
They'd wished me one more day to stay, but since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be with you Good night and joy.